cancel culture. You hear it spoken about a lot. Destroying our society, cancel culture. That was a headline today in the newspapers of an article written by my next guest, Tom Switzer, Executive Director of the Centre for Independent Studies. He's arguing that the wave of outrage blanketing the world is inflaming and expanding the cancel culture. It's a phenomenon, as you know, where vocal left-wing activists seek to remove anyone and anything they disagree with. Not debate it, just cancel and remove. I'm pleased to say Tom Switzer joins me now from Sydney. Tom, terrific piece today. I wanted to get you on the show because I wanted you to take us through, and there's almost 2 or 3 every day, but some recent examples, most egregious, of this cancel culture.
In the United States and Britain than it is even here. I mean, in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd, it's really become an orthodoxy now in America, so much so that when a distinguished Chicago University economist tweeted that the Black Lives Matter movement had hurt their cause by supporting calls to defund the police, he incited an online mob and it culminated in his losing a contract with the Federal Reserve of Chicago. It's shocking. Shortly afterwards, a Boeing executive was forced to resign because Twitter found an article that he'd written in 1987 when he was at university that said that women should not serve in military combat. So the danger in this cancel culture is not just going after people you disagree with, but banishing them from polite society and the national consciousness. And as I say, it's much worse in America than it is here, but it is happening here. And we've seen examples of just simple things like the names of products like Coon cheese being changed. And now more recently, there's a campaign to change the name of the Great Aussie Ice Cream Gay Time because apparently it's harmful towards people of homosexual orientation. I mean, this is madness.
What happened, I mean, you and I are about the same vintage, right? What happened to where we were growing up? If you disagree with someone, you wanted to marshal the arguments and you take them on intellectually. What happened to wanting to have the debate? We're not even prepared now to have the debate.
Well, I think, one of the problems here is that this thing called critical race theory has become predominant in a lot of humanities departments around the world, including in Australia. And there's a widespread view among humanities academics in politics departments, linguistics and history that the structural racism is evident in Western countries. And I think the Black Lives Matter movement, it obviously gained a new leaf of life after the terrible incidents in Minneapolis a year ago. Their original intentions were laudable. After all, no person because of his or her colour should be denied the ideas of fair treatment accorded to white people. But what's happened here is that this loud, noisy minority of, let's be frank, left-wing activists, that they manipulate the disadvantage experienced by members of other ethnic communities in order to exert political control. Now, there's nothing wrong with debating issues, and there's nothing wrong with tolerance, and that's what should be stressed. But unfortunately, these activists, and they're mainly young, they're not interested in debate, and they're far from tolerant. And that's why we have this cancel culture, which I fear is only going to get worse, particularly in Western countries.
Yeah, and they're Marxists too, let's be very clear. They're well-funded, they're well-trained. And, if you go back to Martin Luther King now, 50, 60 years ago, it was about obliterating difference. Colour, creed, was about character, not gender, any of those things. Now it's dividing us by difference. While I've got you, this story out of the US today, the Democrats planning to introduce a bill to add 4 new judges to the Supreme Court. Fierce criticism in the US about this, but it looks like a stack to me. It's a stack that would give the Democrats a majority as I work it out. What's likely to happen here?
Well, I think the first point to bear in mind, in Australia, the aim of packing the courts means appointing judges within a fixed number of slots on the judiciary. In America, stacking the courts means increasing the numbers of judges to the courts. And you have to remember that Democratic partisans and activists, remember the Democratic Party, just been talking about cancel culture, the centre of gravity has shifted well to the left in recent times. And they've wanted to add justices to the Supreme Court to sway the balance of power away from Conservatives. At the moment, the Conservatives have pretty much a 6-3 majority. I don't think court packing is possible in the current Congress, but the prospect isn't as remote as some think. And you have to remember, public trust in American institutions is very low. It's lower in America than it is here. And if this commission that you mentioned endorses court packing, and Biden is crazy enough to go with it, I think you'll find that the political backlash would be furious. America's a centre-right country instinctively.
And just quickly, I mean, the commission might investigate it under President Biden. What about President Kamala Harris, though? This is something she'd take on, wouldn't she?
Yeah, exactly. And it gets back to this fundamental point. Before the US election, Joe Biden ran as, or was portrayed as a moderate, centrist, pragmatic politician. But many of us feared that he would be weak in office and he would be a Trojan horse for the increasingly activist left wing of the Democratic Party. Harris is more to the left of the Democratic Party than Biden is. And if she were president, she would curry favour with her base. And she'd do these kind of things where the Democrats would try to end the filibuster, which forestalls the need for compromise. They'd try to stack the courts, and they'd probably try to create 2 new US states, which would mean 4 new Democrat left-wing senators, which would really shift the balance of power legislatively in Washington.